It's the 26th of August and I'm Tom Glasson. Welcome to The Roast. Tonight, we take a look at a class action lawsuit involving intellectually disabled workers who've been working for as little as $1 an hour. Now, the workers come from the impoverished island nation of Australia. No, guys, someone has seriously misspelled the Philippines here. It's just... I mean, I can see the mistake, you know, Australia, Philippines, they both have letters. It's really here. All right, we're going to have to rewrite a few things. So while we do, Mark Humphries has the headlines.
Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard, the former Prime Ministers whose relationship is bloodier than that lift from The Shining, are the subject of a new book. Triumph and Demise, the broken promise of a Labor generation, was launched today, I assume by someone impartial.
The book was launched by Prime Minister Tony Abbott at Parliament House.
Tony Abbott launched a book about the demise of Labor. That'd be like Lee Harvey Oswald delivering the eulogy for JFK. Though it's possible Abbott was chosen to launch it, as no one is more qualified to talk about broken promises. The book's author, Paul Kelly, unearthed quite a few interesting tidbits about Labor, in particular Rudd's phone etiquette.
The then Prime Minister took a hectoring tone with Bush in a phone call at Kirribilli House. Rudd was astonished to hear President George W. Bush ask, "What's the G20?"
Of course, we all know what the G20 is. It's the thing Rudd won't be hosting because he lost the election. And while the vast majority of the book is about Labor, Kelly did interview some coalition leaders.
It may seem odd to say so now, but I became leader by accident.
No, sounds about right. Also, Malcolm Turnbull talks about the leadership spill and assures Australians that Tony is not a backstabber like Julia Gillard.
I never found Tony to be slippery or treacherous or disingenuous. Insofar as he was a stabber, he was a front stabber with ample warning.
Can't wait to read Paul Kelly's book about Tony Abbott's prime ministership.
Tony Abbott, the front stabber who became Prime Minister by accident.
Palmer United Senator Glenn the Brick with Eyes Lazarus has finally opened up in a radio interview. That's right, he's the brick with a mouth, and he was fielding the tough questions on Brisbane's 4BC.
Is Clive Palmer the best person to be running the Palmer United Party?
Yes, I think he is.
Good work, Glenn. Here, have a dinosaur. He also spoke of why he joined Palmer United.
You know, when the opportunity came up to be a part of the of Team Palmer United, I felt it was a good thing.
Team Palmer United? Man, I'd be hard-pressed to think of a more ill-conceived team.
Everyone needs to be part of Team Australia.
I take that back. Lazarus also responded to revelations that he plagiarised vast chunks of a Wikipedia entry about Queensland and put it on his own webpage. As you can see on Lazarus's website, Queensland is a whale. Here's Lazarus explaining what happened.
It was just something that I thought was worded properly and, I tweaked it a little bit.
Indeed he did. One example of tweaking is where Lazarus's website plagiarises a Wikipedia list of Queensland's wildlife parks, but Lazarus has added Palmasaurus and Motorama at Palmacoolum. Well, there you have it. The balance of power lies with a man who thinks Motorama Vintage Car Museum is a wildlife park. And finally, farmers in Tasmania have found what they believe to be the world's woolliest sheep. What a time to be alive. The sheep, seen here in living hell, is carrying an estimated 20 kilos of fleece, or what's known in the wool industry as a shitload of UGG. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
All right, I mean, no offence to that sheep, but I usually carry 20 kilos of fleece around too. I just don't feel like I have to brag about it the whole time. You're kidding, aren't you? That's your woolliest sheep?
Yeah, mate.
Oh, must be wearing his summer coat. I'm not even warm. So now that we've got the important woolly sheep stories out of the way, let's move on to the end of show fluff piece. A massive class action lawsuit is underway involving the exploitation of Australia's intellectually disabled workforce. The lawsuit follows a 2012 ruling in which the federal court found workers were discriminated against and underpaid, which begs the important question:
What is a fair day's pay for a fair day's work when you're intellectually disabled?
Hang on, I know this one. I want to say a fair day's pay, but that's the trap. It's not that. It's $176 an hour. Oh, no, I give up.
This is Tyson Comrie Duval, heading home after a long day's work. Tyson earns $1.79 an hour, packing muesli bars and jelly beans.
$1.79 an hour? Yeah, that was definitely my next guess. So, okay, that is less than $20 a day, which wouldn't really inspire a whole lot of workplace happiness. It'd be kind of like working at the Lamborghini dealership and not being able to afford all the Lamborghinis you're selling each day. Except for Tyson, the Lamborghini is a $3.85 apricot muesli bar. But the job does have its perks.
In 7 years, he's had a 5-cent pay rise.
A 5-cent pay rise over 7 years, or what the people in the graph community call a straight line. So if you walked past Tyson's pay rise on the street, you probably wouldn't even bend over to pick it up.
And this is Alicia Maloney. She was paid $4.85 an hour. She quit her job in disgust at the low pay.
Oh, she quit a job. Now listen, Alicia, you'll never get a 5-cent pay rise over 7 years with that kind of attitude. Still, $4.85 isn't that bad. I mean, think about it. You work 3 hours, you can afford lunch that day. You work another 4 for breakfast and dinner. Taking the standard 8-hour day, that leaves $4.85 left over to split between rent, bills, travel costs, medical bills, coffee money, fun money, honey money, and a little aside for a rainy day. Besides, David Barbagallo, who runs 230 not-for-profit disability enterprises, argues he'd have to fire people if they were paid more.
What sort of quantum of people who currently work for you would you be talking about roughly losing their jobs?
Well, I'd expect 90%.
90%?
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly, it's a tale as old as time. I mean, how many slaves were downsized when working for money came in? Jazz Twemlow joins me now. Jazz, surely the minimum wage is just a guideline.
Tom, the minimum wage is there to legally protect all people and guarantee them the minimum amount required to live.
Oh, right.
So for everyone not suffering from an intellectual disability, the minimum wage ensures a level playing field even if you're doing a terrible job. For example, this person turned up late to work, hasn't washed his hands, and he undercooked this burger. You see, that person gets minimum wage, so if the laws protect scratchy bum raw beef guy, why not protect the rights of people who genuinely want to work to the best of their ability?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, why not?
No, that was a rhetorical question.
Go on. Doesn't look like he's going to go on. We'll be right back. Huh?
Have you ever received a 5-cent pay rise over 7 years? What the was that about? 5 cents, that. I'd sue those mother at the Roast TV or hashtag Roast TV.
So how did the workers end up getting paid so little in the first place, considering they were working in government-sponsored jobs, specifically for people with disabilities? You know, was it all just a horrible mistake, perhaps? Like, did someone forget to carry the 1? And the 2, and then the 3, and then they accidentally moved the decimal point forward 4 spots, because it happens to the best of us.
If someone with a disability is only 80% productive or competent at their job, they would get paid 80% of the relevant award for that job.
All right, that sounds unfair. So how do we assess people's abilities?
She actually answered all the questions correctly for the Occ Health and Safety, yet she was marked not yet competent in that section. And I said, why has she been marked not yet competent here? And it was because she had been observed in the factory picking up a piece of paper from the floor without bending her knees.
Well, OH&S is very important. So what did she get? A reprimand? A bit of a slap on the wrist?
Alicia's pay was cut by 75%.
Holy shit! On the upside, though, that floor is now spotless. So in response to the class action suit, the federal government has offered a settlement to the 10,000 workers involved.
In return for accepting a payment equivalent to 50% of their owed wages, workers would give up their right to sue the government for back pay.
Okay, so that is 50% times the hours they've worked to the power of what they're owed, minus dignity and self-worth, and that equals, ooh, pretty tough sell by the government's lawyers.
So, some big shot inner city Erin Brockovich lawyer type has convinced you to sue the government just because of a federal court ruling. Don't get me started on those lawyers, am I right? Us, on the other hand, we're the government. And we're here with the offer to end all offers, by which I mean we'll be making no further offers. Now we'll give you 50% of the pay you're owed right now if you drop this class action suit and waive your right to sue us. Because if you lose, you'll get nothing. And we're sick of giving you nothing. So, take the settlement, half of what's legally yours, and you'll still get one of these shiny bad boys every hour. Please take it. The government really needs a win.
Canberra.
But in a shocking twist that the government could never have predicted, it turns out the workers would prefer to get all their money, so they're pushing on with the lawsuit. And for a government that has been struggling in the opinion polls for months, I'm sure a date in court fighting against 10,000 underpaid workers with intellectual disabilities will put them right back on top. Good night.